In our last episode, we saw that cells are constantly folding proteins, repairing damage, and clearing away what they can no longer use. But that raises an important question. What powers the cleanup crew?
The answer is energy. Nearly everything a cell does, from repair to maintenance, requires it. And much of that usable energy comes from the mitochondria, which convert energy from nutrients into ADP, the fuel cells can actually use. But what happens when these cellular power plants become less efficient?
And that's our fourth hallmark of aging?
Exactly. Mitochondrial dysfunction.
We've all heard mitochondria called the powerhouses of the cell. But what does that actually mean?
Mitochondria are tiny energy conversion centers inside most of your cells. They use products from the nutrients you consume, along with oxygen, to help produce ADP, energy the cell can actually use. And some tissues require enormous amounts of it. Your heart, brain, and muscles depend heavily on healthy mitochondrial function because they're working constantly.
So ADP is essentially what allows our cells to get things done?
Exactly. And that's why mitochondrial health matters so much.
So once mitochondria produce ADP, where does that energy go?
Almost everywhere. Cells use ADP to repair damage, maintain cellular structures, communicate, move materials, and perform countless essential functions. Even the protein quality control system from our last episode depends on it. That's why declining mitochondrial energy production can become much more than an energy problem. It can affect the cell's ability to maintain itself.
So healthy mitochondria help keep the entire cellular system running?
Exactly. But producing energy is only part of what mitochondria do.
So mitochondria produce ATP. But is energy their only job?
Not even close. Mitochondria also help regulate cellular signaling, stress responses, and cell survival. So they're much more than cellular batteries. They're connected to how cells respond, adapt, and maintain healthy function. And that's why mitochondrial dysfunction can have effects far beyond energy production. Because when mitochondria begin to struggle, the entire cell can feel the effects.
So what happens to mitochondria as we get older?
Over time, mitochondrial energy production can become less efficient. Mitochondria may produce less usable ADP while experiencing greater cellular stress. And because so many cellular processes depend on that energy, the effects can reach far beyond the mitochondria themselves. The cell still has work to do, but it may have fewer resources available to do it.
And that's when the problem begins to spread?
Exactly. When mitochondrial function declines, the effects can spread throughout the cell. Less ADP can mean fewer resources for repair and maintenance, while cellular stress increases. The result? Less energy, less repair, less resilience, more cellular stress. And because these systems are interconnected, mitochondrial dysfunction can influence the health and function of the entire cell.
But can that increased stress actually damage the mitochondria themselves?
Unfortunately, yes. And that's where a vicious cycle can begin. Yes, and that's where a vicious cycle can begin. Mitochondria naturally generate reactive molecules while producing energy. Normally, cells can manage them. But when mitochondria become stressed or less efficient, that balance can shift. Excess oxidative stress can damage proteins, membranes, mitochondrial DNA, and the mitochondria themselves. The result can become a cycle. Dysfunction increases stress. Stress contributes to damage. Damage reduces efficiency, and declining efficiency feeds further dysfunction. Fortunately, cells have systems for identifying and dealing with mitochondria that aren't functioning properly.
So even mitochondria need quality control?
Exactly.
So mitochondrial dysfunction doesn't happen in isolation?
Exactly. DNA repair requires energy. Gene regulation depends on energy-driven processes. And protein quality control requires energy, too. So when mitochondrial function declines, the effects can reach into systems we've already explored. And those systems can influence mitochondrial health in return. That's the bigger lesson. The hallmarks of aging aren't separate problems. They're interconnected. And as we continue this series, those connections will become even more apparent.
So where does the story take us next?
To something very strange that can happen when cellular damage and stress accumulate. Because sometimes a damaged cell doesn't recover, but it doesn't die either.
So a damaged cell might repair itself. Or, if the damage is too severe, it may die. But what if it does neither?
Sometimes a damaged cell stays alive, but permanently stops dividing. This can actually be protective, preventing a damaged cell from producing more damaged cells. The problem comes when these cells remain in our tissues and begin to accumulate. Because although they've stopped dividing, they haven't stopped affecting the cells around them.
So they're alive, but they're no longer behaving like normal cells?
Exactly. Scientists call this cellular senescence. You may know them by a much more memorable name, zombie cells. And that's where we'll pick up the story in episode 5.